Hi everyone, today we're talking about filing DACA, right? That's the news that we're focusing on today. We've been filing DACA this entire year ever since the Fifth Circuit decision. It's not all good, by the way, because it's actually kind of bad for DACA recipients, but at least they say you can refile, right? You can start filing initial applications. It doesn't mean USCIS will process it, but at least you can file. Now, we're bringing in Gabriela. We do a lot of the DACAs here at the firm, and we've been doing it since 2012. And there's so many things that we want to talk about. How does it relate to ICE? What's the future of DACA look like to USCIS? If you haven't filed yet, should you file? How to file? The requirements. We're going to talk about all of that. And the reason why is because we've been just having nonstop consultations regarding DACA ever since this decision came out. And so we want to share a lot of that with you. So hopefully it helps you kind of make a decision on how to process your case. And again, this is live. So if you guys have any questions regarding DACA, regarding immigration, feel free to ask us. And it's very special that when we get Gabriela here, because she does all the family department cases, a lot of 601, 601A, DACA, military parole. So she's able to answer a lot of things that, sometimes misses my mind, right? But first, let's just talk a little bit about DACA recipients, right? So for the longest time, people couldn't file new applications. They can only renew, they can only file for employment authorization. But if you haven't filed your initial application, these lawsuits have stayed. But since this year, after this decision in January, we filed new DACA applications. And how fast do we get a receipt?
Yeah, so this year, as of January, we started preparing new cases. And obviously now the evidence that you have to prepare is substantial because more years have gone by. So it usually takes about 2 to 4 weeks to get a filing receipt, and then you officially have a case number. With that case number, it proves that you have a pending application with the government. So, it's essentially proof that you're trying to get right with the law, that you are doing everything possible. With this administration, I think it's so important to keep in mind that whatever you can do, whatever is available for you, you should try to do it and get it together. Just so that the government can see, I'm trying my best. I'm doing what I can. This is all I can do for now.
But you don't get a biometrics appointment.
Correct. Yes. So they give you the case number. It shows your name. It shows your date of birth. Essentially, like all your identification information is there. But they don't process the application because that's essentially what they said. We will continue to accept, but we will not adjudicate.
Yeah. So this lawsuit in Texas allows everyone outside of Texas to still file new initial DACA applications. You've probably seen this online, but there's still so many people who haven't done it. And so right now we are encouraging everyone. If you qualify for DACA and you missed it the first time back in 2012, right up till when the lawsuit happened, if you have the ability now to file, you qualify for it, you don't have the criminal records. We're going to go through the requirements in a bit so you can kind of refresh your memory to see if you do qualify or not. But if you do qualify it, file it. Now, if you live outside of Texas, well, then move outside of Texas and file it, right? This is actually very interesting because it completely contradicts with the birthright citizenship issue that the government is dealing with. We'll talk about that later. But right now, if you can file for initial DACA, you should. We'll go into a lot more details, but we'll take some questions first.
Yeah, is the federal government shutdown, does that affect immigration and processing?
I'll help answer that. We do a lot of these reviews with USCIS and with CBP. So it doesn't affect critical workforce. So for example, it doesn't affect the TSA, doesn't affect CBP. They still go to work. They still protect the border. They still do all of that. With USCIS, United States Citizenship Immigration Services, it also doesn't affect them in the sense that all their salaries and funding comes from application fees. They're 99% plus self-funded. So they don't need government money to fund themselves. And for that reason, they continue to go. Immigration judges, however, a lot of it is dependent on government funding. ICE, a lot of it depends on government funding. So that's a little bit different. So immigration is very, very broad. USCIS, they're still doing interviews. They're still processing it. Now, they might have some internal organization they have to do. They may cancel an interview, but that's absolutely normal. They do that all the time with or without a furlough. But yes, USCIS is still moving forward. Cases are still being processed.
Someone says they got their B2 to F1 approved after watching one of our videos. It gave them the courage to do it.
Yes, congrats.
I have an LLC in Texas, life insurance, health insurance broker, and I keep my license moving to a different state.
I don't know that. That's more of like a licensed law issue by state. I could tell you, as an attorney, I have a license in the state of California. So I could practice California law and federal law. If I move to a different state, I need to get that state's license to practice in that law. Some may require me to take their bar exam. So generally speaking, I probably would assume your license is only tied to that state. But if it's a federal issue, a federal license, then you probably could practice.
How long does it take to get a decision after an asylum interview?
We don't do asylum cases, so we really don't have the facts to really tell you how long it takes. In our experience and what we know from our colleagues who do a lot of asylum law, judges are pressured to make decisions extremely fast. So, and we've been seeing that across the board, not just asylum cases, different court cases, removal proceeding cases, USCIS, consulate. We're seeing there's an expedited pressure to process things really fast. Not necessarily in the favor of most applicants, but at least speed-wise, they're trying to process things faster.
I have a minor misdemeanor. Can I apply for DACA?
Yes. So let's talk about that right now.
Yes.
So what are the issues regarding criminality, right?
So what I have seen throughout the years with our own clients is that if you have a minor misdemeanor, meaning like it was something where, for example, you committed vandalism when you were a juvenile, or you had a one instance, like run-in with the law, that is non-significant. That is not tied to like drugs or domestic violence or anything that's usually, on the higher scale. Those cases are still eligible for the DACA as long as you're able to explain everything, even if it's like a couple misdemeanors, if it's something related to like a traffic ticket that became, not more than 3.
Yeah, not more than 3. So if you have a felony, you're out. If you have a significant misdemeanor, you're out. If you have 3 or more misdemeanors, you're out. But post-conviction relief might be able to help you, meaning you can go back to the court and reopen that case and reduce the sentence to change it from a felony to a non-significant misdemeanor. So there's a lot of things to think about, but if it's just one small misdemeanor that doesn't hit, the significant ones, and that's the only issue in your case, you are still likely a go. You definitely want to prepare a good moral character argument. Don't take it lightly. Get the minutes of the court, get a certified disposition, use your resume, show your work, show your volunteer, still prove and go above and beyond and file your case.
Can I get DACA? Can I apply for DACA if I don't have a high school diploma, but I do have a GED?
Yeah, that's straight up on the regulations. Yes, you qualify.
And I'm having trouble paying the annual fee for asylum with USCIS, the administration. What should I do?
I don't know. I think finding an asylum attorney would be able to help you because they probably do this every day. We don't file asylums here.
Can I get my work permit if I didn't get it 5 years ago? As in, did Biometrics in 2021, a week later they closed it down.
So renewal applications are valid. So if you had DACA and you had the ability to file for work permit, you couldn't, so they're accepting renewals. So definitely file.
I think what the person is asking is related to those applications that got installed back in 2020 and 2021.
So
the court shortly reopened the program back in 2020, 2021. We were able to file some cases and they suddenly closed the program. They were no longer doing biometrics or processing the cases, so they have been on a waiting line for like the past 4 or 5 years. So if they did not complete the biometrics, then most likely if the program is reinstated now, it sounds like they will go for biometrics and then they can be processed for a work permit. So I think that's what that person is saying. Like they closed down the biometrics back in 2021. So most likely you get a new appointment to come in for biometrics, and then you get after that an approval, then that's how you get your work permit.
And the reason why we're talking about this now is because we saw the media outlet from USCIS saying that they're going to prepare and update their policy, right? And so a lot of people have been asking, so we've been doing a lot of these consultations, and so that's what we're doing here live to kind of share the information. There's approximately between 50,000 to 100,000 of these cases that are stalled at USCIS who have been initially filed, who got the receipt notice, but just haven't been processed, right? And so once it actually formally goes through, everyone will get biometric appointments. After the biometrics, then work authorization, DACA approvals will arrive in the mail afterwards, right? There's generally no interview process. They review the case. You might get a request for evidence if you filed it 3, 4, 5 years ago, especially if since then, after filing, if there's any sort of criminal record that have popped up, right? And so you have new arrests, if you have new convictions, obviously you might get a request for evidence to explain more. Or if your application wasn't filed with a lot of documents to prove all the requirements, then you also might get a request for evidence. So for all of our clients who we filed from back then till now, and then this year, we're telling them still continue to prepare based on the checklist. What are the proof that you've been here and you continuously been here, and that's usually work where you live, your lease, and if you had your work authorization, then obviously your work, right? But if you didn't have your work authorization, your continuous schooling, what have you been doing, letter recs, pictures, social media. So we use those things to prove that you continuously reside in the U.S. Because if you leave the U.S., well, then your DACA application is null and void, right? And which reminds me, we'll talk more about advanced parole too, right? So if you have DACA, immediately apply for advanced parole, right? So we're encouraging people who have not filed DACA yet, and this is the new initial applications, file it now so you can wait in line. That's number one. And then once DACA gets approved, immediately file for advanced parole, because we're still seeing every day people with advanced parole successfully re-entering the U.S. Gabby is the one who's constantly on the call with the client as they come through, because they're scared abroad, and because we're able to accompany them and make sure that they are safe when they come back in, that's a lawful entry. And if they're married to a U.S. citizen, or again, other U.S. citizens are able to petition for them, then they can adjust their status to get a green card, right? So it's super, super important. But we'll take some more questions and then we'll talk about ICE.
So the GED program, they're enrolled in it. So they don't have it yet.
Yeah.
We'll have to wait.
Qualify.
Also qualify.
They also qualified, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, we talked about this last week, but I want to follow up on this. A 16-year-old has been abroad for 4 years on a green card, and they come back alone to the U.S. They are enrolled in an elite boarding school until 18. And they're going to live with a family friend.
Yeah. So I got mixed signals about this. One time, we did a lot of these cases, right? But one time I was bringing in, I think a 16, 17-year-old girl, and the officer said, no, the parents needed to be here. So we got a hard stop because of the 16, 17-year-old. Now, there might be a bunch of situations that triggered that, but still, ultimately, the officer said, no, we need the parent to be here. Luckily, the parent had a tourist visa that got expired. We were able to renew it really quickly, and then we would bring them all in. But that was basically a shocking event, because we had to basically go back to Mexico, figure everything out, and then come back in. Then, after that incident, I think it was earlier this year, where we were really concerned because we're bringing in, again, another minor with a green card. And we checked with the officer, hey, does the parents need to be here? Last time you said the parents need to be here. Can they come in without the parents? Pretty please. The officer said, yes, they could. I never really got an explanation as to why that other time, but at least the most recent trip we were able to bring in the 16-year-old without the parent.
Okay. What if I have been here since 2006 or 2007? Can I still apply for DACA?
Yes. So you want to talk about the eligibility requirement?
Let's go through all the eligibility for initial DACA applicants, right? This is so important, especially if you haven't applied for it yet. Let's check if you qualify.
Okay, perfect. So this is off of the USCIS website. So you need to be under 31 years of age as of June 15, 2012. So it doesn't matter how old you are now, as long as you were under the age of 31 as of June 15, 2012. You must have come to the U.S. Before your 16th birthday. So even if it's one day before, and you can prove if you entered on a tourist visa or any other type of a status, as long as you can prove that you were under 16, then you qualify.
And a lot of people entered illegally, right? So a lot of people enter without inspection before they're 16. That still qualifies for DACA. So that's really important to know.
Yeah. And then the way to prove that is usually we use the school records. If you came in illegally, but then you have a school record that shows you're enrolled in a school, then that also works out. You have to have continuously resided in the U.S. since June 15, 2007. So that person asking about the 2006, yes, you do qualify. So the key day is June 15, 2007. And then you must have been present in the U.S. on June 15, 2012. So usually employment records or school records or any sort of like third-party record that can show June 15, 2012 you were here. If you were a minor, we have also used documents that are from the parents. You know, if for some reason there is nothing but your parent had a bank account,
Yeah.
or, you know, a lease agreement that shows and you were listed on the lease agreement, we can also do that. And then you cannot have lawful status as of June 15, 2012. So no F1 visa, no tourist status or anything. You have to have been on unlawful status on June 15, 2012. You can be currently in a school or have obtained a GED or a high school diploma, or if you were also honorably discharged as a veteran of the U.S. Armed Forces, you also qualify for DACA. And again, this one is not have a felony conviction, a significant misdemeanor, 3 or more other misdemeanors, or otherwise pose a threat to national security or public safety. Those are the qualifications for the DACA program.
And again, we've done requests for evidence for every single one of these, right? Like, how do you prove on a particular day you were here like 10 years ago, 20 years ago? We use proof of before and after, right? Like a couple of days before he went to Chuck E. Cheese's, a couple of days after he went to a friend's birthday party. He's not going to leave the country within just that few amount of days, right? So we've done all sorts of things to address each one of these requirements. So if you feel like I qualify, I meet everything, I don't know how to prove it, that's where we come in and help, right? But again, not just us. There's so many people in the online community who are here to help people who can't get DACA. And right now, right, this year, with all the craziness, DACA is available again for initial filing and then for processing very soon once USCIS releases it. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the negative parts of this case, because in this appeal, the Fifth Circuit straight up said that DACA exceeded its authority and the president couldn't have created this program, so essentially it is unlawful. And that argument is exactly what we've been hearing from ICE, right? So I've talked with a lot of ICE officers and we asked them, hey, somebody is on DACA. Why deport them? They have lawful status here. And they just shake their heads and say, no, they do not have lawful status here. They have a deferred action to be deported. But that doesn't mean they cannot be deported. Maybe eventually they get deported, or if they commit any of these crimes, we can deport them now. It's not lawful status. It is not a protection. And based on case law, the president exceeded his authority to grant this deferred action. So from all points of view, a prior president exceeded their authority by granting this privilege not to deport somebody. But the current president wants to deport them. And so ICE has almost every authority to do that. Now, arguably, we haven't seen them push that hard into this. And this case law, what we're trying to tell a lot of our clients is, but yes, that might be true, officer. Yes, that might be true. But based on the last line of this case, right? And again, I've been printing these out and sharing it with different people. Even if the president exceeded the authority, the case is stayed because it will cause a dramatic effect on society. It will harm society because everybody relied on this issue, right? Relied on the DACA being approved to be able to live here, to work here, so society will be disrupted. So even though they might have exceeded the authority a little bit, but because if you reverse that, it will cause chaos. So that's what we tell the ICE officers. We have deferred inspection, right? We have DACA. Please don't deport us. And if you do end up violating that and you do end up deporting us, it will cause chaos in society. So please, and they understand that, but that's at least something that you can say. So we will see what and how this case unfolds. If it goes to Supreme Court, if they take away the stay, if the next administration comes back and if Congress musters up the willpower to release a new law that actually grants a pathway to citizenship. There's so many talks on both sides of the aisle about this particular issue, right? DACA recipients, what should America do for them and about them? And right now, in this instance, 2025, people who can file, who meet the requirements that we just talked about, you can file and you can get a receipt notice. And that is at least some equity that you can present to ICE, right? You don't have adjustment of status, you don't have anything else, but at least you have a DACA receipt. And that means a lot. So we'll take some more questions and then we'll get into the success story for the day.
Are they going to start processing the people that were stopped the process in 2021?
Yes.
And you guys help with this process, and what is the cost?
We can't talk about costs on the live channel, obviously, but feel free to do a $250 consultation, right? That's what you can book us on our website really easily, and we will walk you through the whole thing. And ideally, we'll show you exactly how to do it, and then you can just do it on your own, right? And we only charge the $250 consultation. But if your case is complicated, you have criminal records, etc., then we'll based on your situation, we quote accordingly.
Should I be planning on moving? I'm in Texas as a DACA recipient.
Talk to your family, talk to your job. There's a lot of things to consider when you move. But if you're just zeroing in on the DACA issue, Texas is obviously not as friendly as everywhere else right now.
Can they apply for DACA if they have DACA expired for 2 years?
Yeah, DACA renewal, right?
You'll have to apply for a new application. So if your DACA has been expired for more than 365 days for the work permit, then you need to reapply as an initial applicant.
Ouch. Sorry.
Yeah.
That hurts. That harms.
Yeah.
What about if you file, because they want you to file the renewal 120 days before it expires. Yeah. What if you file it like 20 days or 30 days before it expires?
No, that's okay.
That's still okay?
That's still okay. Even within that year. So like, for example, if my work permit expired in January of 2025, if I file before January of 2026, then I'm still eligible to renew my DACA. But if I go past January 2026 and it's February 2026, then I'm now considered a new applicant. So I have to reapply. So it's super important to keep those key dates in mind. If you're experiencing financial hardship and you can do it within that 120-day time frame, then still consider filing as soon as you get the money within those next 12 months. Yeah. So you could, you would have to reapply as an initial applicant, resubmit all the evidence, prepared all the documentation all over again.
You can't do it in Texas, but you can do it everywhere else, and you'll get a receipt. And hopefully they process this soon and fast so you can regain your work authorization.
Someone says it's a trap. It's a way to make a list of all undocumented immigrants so they can then deport them.
That's a very pessimistic view, and it could be right and it could be wrong. But if you have to choose a way to live your life, if everybody is just extremely pessimistic about all things, then no cases will ever get approved. You file, maybe DACA will be approved, maybe it'll be denied, maybe you'll get deported. Maybe you file for a green card, maybe it'll be approved, maybe it'll be denied, maybe you'll be deported. If you apply for citizenship, maybe it will be revoked. But if you don't do anything, then you just continue to live in the shadows and in the darkness. So this pathway, there have been good people that have been trying to fight for DACA recipients, and this is the reward of their labor for all of these years. If your conspiracy theory is right, saying that they are just part of the system, right? Again, the government, if it's up to the government, they would just say, nope, DACA stopped, period, don't file. But so many people have poured in their heart. So many states have joined amicus brief saying that DACA does not harm their citizens. So please, Texas, shut up, right? Essentially, right? Because Texas is saying DACA harms all of America. And other states are saying, no, DACA recipients don't harm us. We like them. And so many attorney generals, so many nonprofit organizations, schools have come out and say, DACA recipients are some of the hardest working people that we know. Please do not cancel this program. And the court agreed, saying, okay, Texas, you've shown that DACA might have harmed you, so fine. People in your state cannot file. But everywhere else, nobody else has said that DACA has harmed them, so that they can continue to file.
And I think it's important to highlight they have had a list of about 800,000 DACA applicants for the past 13 years and haven't really taken a negative action. So I think that's important to keep in mind. If we're talking about a listing, they already have a list of 800,000 people that they can, look into.
Right.
We've had clients since the program started, we were one of the first offices to file. Our approvals came in within 2 weeks. A lot of people came out of the shadows. I've seen clients go from DACA to getting green cards, to becoming U.S. citizens, to becoming attorneys.
Yeah.
It's something to keep in perspective. I know it's a hard time. I know it's really difficult for a lot of people.
Right.
But keep in mind that past 13 years, mostly positive, unless you commit a real bad crime.
Yeah.
I've heard of a DACA recipient that she was scamming through a nonprofit organization. She got a bunch of funds, never did anything. So she recently was detained and deported, but those are the extreme situations. I think if you consider, within the last 13 years, is mostly positive. So,
can my wife still renew even if she's now a stay-at-home mom?
Yes, there is no requirement to be employed. And then essentially the work permit is a separate application. So
I went to Biometrics for DACA. They requested I change my name. Should I reapply? I'm already approved.
Change the name, maybe the 250 consultation. I mean, it depends, right?
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I've never, yeah.
How many years is DACA and has it changed?
Work permit is valid for 2 years, and you usually have to apply within a year and a half for the renewal. So valid for 2 years.
And will I have to reapply if I already applied back in 2020?
No, you don't reapply as long as you still have that filing receipt and you never got a notice saying that your case was closed. Your case is still pending since 2020.
And you can check your status online, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What are the rules for DACA in New York City?
Same as everywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
I live in Texas. What can I do?
Move out of Texas and then file.
I'm a permanent resident. I applied for an SB1 visa, and they said it is approved. How long will it take?
Approximately 9 months to a year. The thing you want to track is their NVC and the consular process, because essentially that's what you're going through. So check with the local community to see how long the National Visa Center is processing the DS-260s and the consular interviews. And so however long they're processing those cases, that's probably how long it'll take for you.
About the minor CBP entry, can the parent send a statement of, I'm caring for, this person, so this is why I can't accompany them?
That's exactly what I did. I had the parents prepare everything. I had everything in hand. I was reviewing with the officer, and the officer says, okay, great, you could come in. So I mean, when in doubt, I would prepare for that. But again, if you're asking me, is it going to be, again, this is CBP officers. Sometimes they change their mind, right? Again, I still don't have a clear answer why that 17-year-old had to have the parent, right? And luckily the dad was just on the other side of the fence, right? And so we're able to get them in. But the worst case scenario is you go and bring the kid in, and then suddenly the parent said no. The CBP says no, the parent needs to be here. Then what do you do, right?
Can the other states try to sue so that DACA becomes invalid?
Absolutely. The other states can join this particular lawsuit and say, now we want to agree with Texas. We also have been harmed by DACA recipients in our state, in our healthcare, in our education. So if the state attorney general joins, then absolutely. Again, this litigation has been going on for more 5 years now, and they haven't.
Okay, I want to talk about advanced parole on DACA, but first, I got married to my husband. He is a U.S. citizen. Is it a good time to file now?
As good of a time as ever.
Is it safe to apply to do advanced parole with DACA right now to El Salvador?
To your country of origin is not the main issue. It's how you apply for advanced parole and then fulfilling that promise. So, humanitarian, schooling, family. We did a separate video on all the different reasons we've used to help different people get advanced parole and successfully got them back. And the majority of the cases, again, all of our cases have came in. We don't have a single case where we got advanced parole and they were stuck outside, right?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Everybody's come back.
Right.
Everybody's come back. The most recent one, March of this year.
Yeah. So we did a lot of, we share a lot of information about how to do it and go about doing it. The only ones that we've heard were denied entry were the ones who applied for a bogus advanced parole and they didn't actually go and fulfill that promise. They just crossed the border and they came right back, and the officers get really pissed with them. They detected fraud and misrepresentation and confiscate the advanced parole, right? And so that's the horror stories that you hear. But if you apply for a legitimate reason that fulfills the advanced parole requirements, and then you go and actually do that thing, and we came back, again, unless you have a drug offense or something like that, right? Because again, USCIS could adjudicate and approve an advanced parole, but CBP is looking at other things. So they see, oh, you actually have criminal offenses, I have to give you over to ICE. That's a different story.
Is it true that Henan will sign at the end of October?
I don't know. What is that?
I have no idea.
Sorry, don't know.
Can he send the same documents he used on his first application since it expired more than a year ago?
Oh, for DACA?
For refiling? Yeah. So just add the additional documentation.
Yeah.
So because if you applied, for example, if you applied in 2012 and that guy initial application got approved back then, now you have to prove that you have been continuously present from 2012 to 2025 because you're considered a new applicant. So yeah, the evidence you submitted before, in addition to proof of presence for up to now.
So Judge Henan is the judge that's making the final decision in Texas.
Oh, okay. What about it?
Will he sign in the end of October? Do you have any indication?
Nope.
If my DACA expires on the 26th next year, will I not be able to renew because I'm in Texas?
Renewals are okay. So all renewals are continuing. It's just initial applications have been stopped. So the whole background to this is that it's been stopped, and then Biden came in and says, okay, now we want to restart it. We want to restart it. New applicants, come on. And then Texas said, hell no. And so stopped it. So this lawsuit is really centered around new applications. And then now, as this case finally unfolds, new applications have been stopped, but only in Texas. Everywhere else, they can file.
I had an interview for adjustment of status back in July. Still have not heard back regarding approval. I was told to wait up to 6 weeks. Should I worry? What should I do now?
We definitely need more context, but 2-3 months is not completely out of the ordinary. We are seeing cases that get approved a lot faster. So this is a little bit strange, but depends on your jurisdiction, your case specifically. Usually I wouldn't consider a mandamus or lawsuit action until like 6 months to a year. So you're still well within the time of the waiting. But depending on your case, there might be different issues. And so it might be ordinary for you to wait.
The DACA and CDL, the trucker license, is that still being paused? Do you have any knowledge on that?
I don't know anything.
Yeah, commercial driver license and DACA. I mean, essentially, you have to have proof of an immigration document to get a commercial driver license. So if your work permit is valid, then you can continue to do so. It really depends on the state. So I know California is very friendly, and we have a few clients that have commercial driver licenses. So what we have seen is the DMV just wants to see the valid work permit. Now, I did see something related to commercial driver license in Texas. If it is Texas, then it may be different, but it depends on your state.
Any update on the H-1B lawsuit regarding the $100,000 or a position exemption?
No additional updates since what we talked about last week.
I have I-130 approved. Need to file for 601A. Should I wait and see what happens with DACA first?
No. If you can qualify, file it now. If DACA comes in, you file for DACA. Everything can be applied in parallel and helps each other. So whenever you have it ready, file that.
My 601A is approved in Texas. Will I have to reapply for another one?
No.
Nope.
601A hasn't changed.
Yeah, 601A hasn't changed. If it's approved, it's good. You'll keep it. You'll use it.
I'm married to a U.S. citizen with 2 kids. Can my case get approved faster?
Yeah, potentially, because bona fide marriage, the officer reviews it. We just had a case that was actually quite difficult, right? Margaret, we worked on a case and it was approved within 2 months.
It was scheduled for interview within a month, and then
It was approved on
it
the
was
day of.
approved on the day of the interview. The client didn't even get a work permit.
Wow.
Because it was so fast. So
1 month.
within 2 months, you get your whole green card.
Yeah.
And then the interview was super easy. It was like a 5-minute interview from what I heard back from the client.
Yeah.
They barely asked any questions. The officer actually, in fact, as they came into the room, he said, "Oh, I'm going to approve you guys. I just need to do this for
Yeah.
part of the process." So then they sat down, asked just their names, how their day was. And they said, "Okay, you guys are approved. You can go on."
So 2 months from the time of filing, right? And then green card. Boom.
I did CIGIS and had my work permit, but should I still apply for DACA?
We don't really encounter that.
Yeah, no, and then I don't know if CIGIS will be considered like some sort of like lawful status. I'm not familiar with that part, but you cannot have lawful status on June 15, 2012. So that's a little tricky.
Yeah, I would really want to know a little bit more, but we don't do losages at our firm, right? And so, yeah, but if you qualify for all the things of DACA and you qualify for everything of CIGIS, I would probably stick with CIGIS because that's better than DACA. DACA is just a deferred, right, from removal.
Do you recommend doing advanced parole still or just filing for I-601A?
Advanced parole.
If you previously had DACA but let it expire for over a year, can you now reapply for DACA?
Yeah, sure, reapplied as an initial application.
So it won't be processed, but at least you'll get a receipt, and that is at least an equity, a shield with ICE.
So I got my biometrics done before DACA was frozen. Will I need to redo them?
We'll see when USCIS comes up with a notice. They might say everybody needs to, who haven't received it, will do a new set of biometrics. Totally possible, because to them, that's a much easier process, right? Just feed everybody through the biometrics, get their new fingerprint, check with the criminal data bank, and there's no arrest, new convictions, then green cards get mailed out. I mean, not green cards, work permits get mailed out.
I'm married to a U.S. citizen, but she and my kid live in Mexico. Can I still fix my status to live in the U.S.?
You are married to a U.S. citizen, and?
The U.S. citizen and their child live in Mexico.
Okay.
But they want to get status to live in the U.S.
So you can file for adjustment, but you have to show that the U.S. citizen came back and you intend to be here. And if you qualify for 601, then you could prove that that being separated would cause extreme hardship. The hard part about that extreme hardship would be the officer will ask, why don't you just both go back to Mexico, for example, right? And so possible, you have to be a little creative in the way you apply for this argumentation.
An affidavit of support, right? They need taxes to apply for, to sponsor it, so.
Yeah, not impossible, but a lot of things that you have to really structure correctly.
Oh, I-601A is approved if law goes through. Wouldn't I accumulate unlawful status in Texas with DACA?
Okay, well, 601A essentially forgives all unlawful presence, right? So it doesn't matter, right? So it doesn't even matter if you don't have DACA, right? A lot of people have 601A, they have no DACA, they have nothing. They've been unlawful for like 10, 15, 20 years, but because 601A is approved, they get their green card, right? We've done plenty of those.
We did a DACA recipient that just came back last Monday. He was on DACA for a very long time, applied for the 601A, just went to Ciudad Juarez about 2 weeks ago, and then he got his passport back on Monday, and he's back with his family, so.
My ITIN has expired for a few years.
Oh.
Does that affect my DACA application that's pending?
No, the IT number is not related to the DACA application.
Yeah.
I'm filing with my husband. He's a U.S. citizen. What are the requirements if I have DACA?
The most important one is your lawful entry, right? And so if you have lawful entry in the U.S., as in like you had a visa and you're a visa overstay and then eventually apply for DACA, then you can apply to get a normal adjustment of status and a normal process. And but within like a few months, you should be able to get your green card. But if you don't have lawful entry, right, if you cross the border illegally, if you enter without inspection, then you might have to do the advanced parole, right, which will help, right? But if you don't have the advanced parole, then you might have to be forced to do the waiver, which is a little bit longer process. So it depends. 3 things, right? If you had lawful entry, no problem. Your process will go smooth, given everything else is good. If you enter without inspection, then you need to get advanced parole. And if you got the advanced parole, it's almost as if you entered with inspection, and things will proceed accordingly. If you don't have the first 2, then you have to apply for a waiver.
DACA recipients that want to leave the country, should they file 601 before leaving?
Well, I mean, why do you want to leave the country if you I mean, there's so many things online about this, right? There are plenty of people DACA recipients who leave the country for years, right, to maybe even a decade, and then they come back with lawful status. So that's one option. But if you're talking about 601, I'm assuming you're already married to a U.S. citizen, you have other U.S. citizens that are petitioning you, then you want to file for the 601, get everything approved, and then you go to, the consulate, and then you come back.
Just 601 names.
I'm doing advanced parole next week. What are some absolute must-haves when I come back? Like, how do I make sure the process is smooth?
I think Joseph already touched on this, but it's like having proof that you fulfilled what you say you were going to do in your home country. So if you said you were going to go visit your grandmother or your grandfather or your elderly family members, then having proof that you did that. And then also just coming within the time frame that they allowed you to go out for. I think that's essentially all. And then just obviously having your DACA approval, your DACA work permit, showing that you're on valid status for DACA.
My DACA expired 3-4 years ago. Can I reapply or can renew?
They have to reapply.
Can a U.S. citizen parent petition for their son or daughter over the age of 21?
Yes, they can. There's that's the family preference category. So there is a longer wait time for people to get green cards through that. But yeah, you can file an I-130, a petition through the parent.
And your wait time depends on which country you're born in.
And how do I prove that I did what I said I did? Like, how do I prove that I visited my parent?
Oh, so yeah, we had a client like this. Which airport did you fly to, right? And where does your grandparent live, right? Do you have pictures of you guys together, right? Is it a hotel? So I mean, the clear sign that you didn't do that is if you just crossed the border and you came back, right? When did you leave and when did you come back? But, so the officer will ask. And so do you have things on your phone? Do you have things to be able to explain it? Again, these are officers. So it's how you say it matters more than, you have a whole bunch of documents in hand, right? So they're trying to detect if you're lying or not.
Can I apply for DACA if I already applied for asylum and that case is still pending?
We don't do asylum cases, but they are mutually exclusive. And so if you qualify for DACA and based on all these requirements, I guess you could apply for it, but it's kind of contradictory with asylum because if the asylum usually you need to apply within 1 year of being here. And if you apply for asylum 20, 30 years ago, there's probably something fishy and something wrong, right? So if you just recently applied for asylum, or even arguably in the past 5 years, you probably don't qualify for DACA, right? So having somebody who can apply for DACA and asylum, it's going to be a super rare case.
The question is, should I apply now or wait until things get finalized? Apparently some top lawyers in Atlanta are saying wait until things get filed, or finalized. You're saying do it now?
Especially for people who are living in the shadows. Right, so many people are extremely concerned, and so we are encouraging people to file, but also prepare for the request for evidence. The easiest way is wait for things to be finalized, they issue a memo, and then everybody rush to file. Sure, that makes things a little bit simpler, but there's nothing preventing you from filing now. And if having that receipt is important to you, then do it, right? And from what we have seen this year, so many people have been just unable to sleep, right? I mean, you have to put yourself in the position of people who have not receive a DACA yet, right? They could have gotten it, but they didn't. Now they want to do it, but the case has been stalled. And then with all the things that's been going on with ICE, they're just terrified. So under that emotional state, I think filing it, having some sort of receipt is a better protection. You might have to do more work in the sense of after you file, you get a request for evidence and then you have to provide more things, but that's something that you can deal with. Is it easier just to wait? Guidance are clear, comes out, then you file? Again, sure. But nothing is preventing you from filing now. That's the thing that I want to emphasize.
Do I currently have to keep studying to be eligible, even if I have my GED already?
No, as long as you have a GED diploma, high school diploma, or are currently in the school to get a GED or high school diploma.
How long after 601A is approved do they issue you a spot in Ciudad Juarez?
Based on the record, it can take anywhere between 3 months to a year.
Okay. If I applied for U visa, can I still apply for a first-time applicant for DACA?
I don't think they're mutually exclusive. So the answer is yes. We don't do the U visas at the office. But again, to the best of my knowledge, they're completely mutually exclusive, so you could totally do it.
When do you think that Texas lawsuit will be settled?
I mean, the question is whether or not it's going to be appealed to Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court is going to make a decision on it next year, right? And then if a new lawsuit will open up, because it might.
If they take away work permits in Texas, are we still eligible for advanced parole?
Well, the lawsuit doesn't take away work permits, just takes away the right to file for new applications, right? So if you already have DACA, you can apply for advanced parole now. This lawsuit doesn't affect you.
So on this AOS interview, haven't heard back for 2-3 months. What can I do to speed that decision along?
Look into mandamus, not to say you want to file it, but look through all the steps regarding how to exhaust your remedies, right? And when you search those terms, it may give you a better idea. And you'll see things like contact your congressman, senator, contact your field office, InfoPass. Those are all things that you could do. But there's an exhaustive list of all the different things you could do. We even had a client write to the first lady, so. But anyway, your goal is just to get the officer to pay attention, because sometimes the officer misplaces your file and they just lost it. They're just people and bureaucracy and office as well. So sometimes, again, the file was lost, or they took an extended vacation and now they're finally coming back. So you push them a little, it just pushes you up on the priority.
If I updated my address on the USCIS account, do I have to file a form for that?
You mean the AR-11? If you do it online, that's it. You don't have to file anything else.
Can you recapture unused time on an H-1B after it has expired for a new petition?
Yes.
Can I still apply for DACA if my husband is petitioning me?
Yes.
How long would it take for U.S. citizen sibling petition for older siblings with DACA? Around how long it'll take?
It depends where the beneficiary is from. So it depends where you were born.
Right. India, Vietnam, China, they take a little bit longer than everywhere else. Mexico, Philippines, yeah. These 5 countries have a long backlog.
Can you apply for DACA again if you got a DUI charge for reckless driving?
So what we know based on history is that if you were convicted of the DUI, then you're no longer eligible for DACA.
Good. And should I apply for DACA now or wait?
If you qualify, it is our firm's position that you should file.
If I'm applying for DACA, what should I start gathering now? Like what kind of evidence?
Everything we kind of mentioned. Now, the good thing about it is USCIS's website gives you a pretty clear checklist. So start there. But if you feel like you can't get some of those things, that's when you contact us, contact somebody else, and try to be more creative, right? And so again, we faced hundreds of DACA applications with different RFEs. So look at the basic checklist that USCIS provides. Those are all things you can easily gather within a few hours, maybe a little longer, half a day, and then once you have everything, fill out the form, everything is ready, write the check, and be prepared to file, right?
Can I have a manager from work sponsor me for a green card?
You can have a company sponsor you. The manager, him or herself, cannot do it on their own, but the company can.
Can you apply for DACA if you receive government assistance?
I don't know.
Yeah, we've had certain circumstances where applicants have received government assistance in some way. We haven't had any adverse decisions because of that. So I would say it is possible to apply based on our, client history. There is nothing on paper that says you're not eligible for DACA if you applied for government assistance.
If I got my biometrics and it was canceled that same day, do I need to do anything else with my process?
If you're talking about DACA, right, or I guess anything, biometric is just one small step in the whole process. Mm-hmm. So, it's just one stall. So if it got canceled, you have to wait for the next one, right? And your case can't move forward until your biometrics is done.
I had a wet, reckless arrest. Am I safe to advance parole travel?
I would want to know more. And typically, if there's any criminal convictions, this is what I would advise you to still apply for the advanced parole, right? And get it. But just because you get it doesn't mean you actually have to execute and leave, right? So once you do get it, maybe in a few months, and you have this criminal record, maybe I would check with CBP officers, right? Go to deferred inspection, go to your local CBP officer and say, hey, this is my situation. What would you recommend? That's what we do, right? We go talk to CBP officers all the time because it's up to their discretion, right? So who better ask than them? And if they said, I wouldn't go, you take that as a hint.
And I want to remind our audience, we're not your lawyers. This is not legal advice.
Right. So that's why it's a little bit more complicated, and we'll definitely want to know more.
Can I go home for vacation under a conditional green card and come back without being detained when coming back to the U.S.?
If you have a conditional green card, you're eligible to travel. CBP officer, when they see you, they will see if you're admissible to the United States. So that's their job, to admit you because you're out of the country. So you're trying to come back in, they're trying to admit you. In that admission process, they have to review a few things. If you violate some things, then they can detain you. But under all normal circumstances, if you're a normal individual, no criminal history, nothing that's suspicious, they generally let you in. We have tons of clients who are constantly leaving and coming back on conditional green cards, etc. So generally, you should be fine. But if there's something that you know, that they might know, that you might know, that they might be concerned about, then that's something that you want to prepare for.
Do you think they'll immediately revoke the work permit from DACA in Texas?
No, I think that the stay order is quite strong. So unless the Supreme Court now goes and says, this judge didn't go far enough, right? If the Supreme Court says, I agree with the analysis, DACA has exceeded its authority of presidential power, so now we want to actually cancel all work permits of all DACAs throughout the U.S. That's probably what will happen, right? But it's not the, but based on this order, I don't think they will cancel work permits. Today's success story is about getting a biometrics appointment overseas. It is extremely hard and it is life-changing and it is so important, but it seems so insignificant and small. But that's just how, in a way, broken our immigration system is. This family, they've invested over $500,000 into the United States through the EB-5 program decade ago. They just couldn't get the biometrics. So they got their conditional green card with their 526 approval, but the family had an emergency, so they were outside of the U.S. This is what happened. They left the U.S., their green card expired. COVID happened. They couldn't come back in. They filed for the 829 to get the 10-year green card, and the USCIS issues them a biometrics appointment. Come get a fingerprint. They were stuck in a catch-22. They couldn't fly to the U.S. because Their green card was expired. Their 829 was expired. They couldn't fly to the US. But they needed to do their fingerprint in order for them to get the 10-year green card, in order for them to fly to the US. You might say, well, can't you go to the consulate? They've tried. SB1 was not an option, right? Every single thing was stuck. They found one attorney couldn't do it, found another attorney couldn't do it, finally contacted us. And we tried to get them in, but the customs officer would not let them. So now they're truly stuck outside. We tried our absolute best to see if the customs officer would let them in through humanitarian parole to come in, get their fingerprint, fly out, green card comes, mail it to them, they come back in a green card. That's how we used to have solved this simple problem. But because of the executive order, humanitarian parole was canceled, so a simple fix could not be done. We didn't give up. So this is the next thing we did. We went to Santa Ana field office and we begged the officer. We first filed with USCIS. Then we got the info pass appointment, and then we begged the officer, can you please grant the 551 stamp on their passport, because they already mailed the passport to us, right? We contacted USCIS, we got the info pass, and we had the clients mail their entire family's passport to our office. We brought it down to the field office with a 551 stamp, said, can you please stamp it? And the officer talked with us for a long time and said, no, sorry, based on policy. We were so close. We felt the officer was going to do it, but at the end of the day, said couldn't. And we begged them, well, at least can you help us try to get an appointment overseas, biometrics? They said maybe. So same day, we got the rejection. We overseed the passport back to the client, and we contacted a field office overseas, a USCIS biometrics appointment office overseas, to see if they can do it. We corresponded a few times, and ultimately they said no. We said, why not? You were able to help us last time. Our previous client who couldn't get a biometrics in the US, you were able to help. And then the biometrics center overseas said, well, that was because they lived in a country without a biometrics center. But now your client, who is from China, they could go to the USC, they could go to the Guangzhou consulate to get the biometrics. So defer it back to them. Again, we hit another dead end. CBP gave us a dead end. Santa Ana emergency 501 stamp gave us a dead end. USCIS office overseas gave us a dead end. And now we were forced to go back to the Guangzhou consulate. But we had 3 essential letter recs: the CBP letter rec, we got the field office overseas, and the Santa Ana office. And we used all of that to contact the Guangzhou consulate and said, can you please let our client do this biometrics? It was a circumstances beyond their control. They couldn't get back to the US. Look at all the things that we've tried. And the Guangzhou office said, yes, come. The client flew there, got the biometrics, the 829 processing at USCIS reopened, and the green card is going to be adjudicated, processed, and the entire family can finally get their 10-year green card after 10 years of investment and after being stuck abroad for so long. Something as simple as getting your fingerprint done for really wealthy individuals. That is the immigration system. A lot of people see immigration only in their own little lane. DACA recipients have an extremely hard time. I understand. Asylum applicants have an extremely hard time. Immigration judges. And a lot of people who are doing through the EB2, EB3 perm process, extremely hard time. And everybody thinks grass is greener on the other side. We are here to tell you, everybody suffers almost indiscriminately because of the political system and because of the difficult immigration system that we have. Life happens and our system cannot adapt fast enough. And this is all the methods that we had to do just so that they can get a simple biometrics appointment, just so they can finally come to the US as a green card holder. But we're very happy to share the success story with you. It's nearly impossible to get biometrics overseas. Maybe this is what we just have to do in the future every single time, right? Show the enormous amount of work that we had to go through in order for them to contact their consulate, but at least it worked. So if you guys have any questions about biometrics overseas and how to prove it, we'd love to share with you. We'd love to talk to you. Feel free to book a consultation. Thank you. Bye-bye.